Welcome to the September 2013 episode of Iowa City in Focus. I'm your host, Mary Bryant. Did you know that the last week of September is Banned Books Week, which celebrates our freedom to read? Each year since 1995, the Iowa City Public Library, which is just behind me here, has held the Carroll Spaziani Intellectual Freedom Festival during Banned Books Week. On this month's episode, I'll talk to Maeve Clark, Adult Services Coordinator at the Iowa City Public Library, about the ideas behind the Intellectual Freedom Festival and the events they have planned for this year. We'll also head out to Oakland Cemetery to hear about their online map and database recently made available to the public. Finally, you'll get a preview of one of this year's events at the Intellectual Freedom Festival, a reading of banned poetry. Stay tuned. Today I'm talking with Maeve Clark, the Adult Services Coordinator here at the Iowa City Public Library, about the Intellectual Freedom Festival that is happening here at the end of the month. So Maeve, can you give me a little bit of background on the Intellectual Freedom Festival?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So the Iowa City Public Library has had what we call the Carroll Spaziani Intellectual Freedom Festival since 1995. And the Freedom Festival is in honor of Carroll Spaziani, who worked at the Iowa City Public Library for 26 years. And she was head of various departments and different names, but mostly community services. But the real reason why we have the Intellectual Freedom Festival and name it after her is because she was such a champion of intellectual freedom and people's right to freely congregate, discuss whatever they want. She's just a really strong champion. And so when she retired, we felt that it would be appropriate to do the same kinds of activities we did under Carroll's stewardship, but now honor her with that name. So intellectual freedom for us and Banned Books Week really talks about how we don't keep information from the public. So you may not agree with something that you read in the library, or you may not agree with a meeting that takes place in the library, but just because you don't agree with it, or your neighbor doesn't agree with it, or you think that that opinion or that work shouldn't be available for everyone else to see, doesn't mean that you can stop it. So it's a basic tenet of our democracy is for people to learn and explore and express. And so that's really what intellectual freedom is, at least here at the Iowa City Public Library.
So what sorts of events and programs do you have planned for this year?
Well, this year we're actually coinciding exactly with Banned Books Week. So Banned Books Week is the week of September 22nd through 28th, so the last week of September. And we have a number of activities. The first one is a computer class. And this one we thought fell well into Intellectual Freedom Festival, and it's protecting your privacy, internet safety. So it's a huge issue about internet safety and the NSA and WikiLeaks and what information can be shared and what information can't be shared and who can have access to that information. So we think it's important for the public to know if they want to share, if they don't want to share, how you can protect yourself. That's the first thing. And then this might sound sort of surprising, but we are having a banned book story time for kids because often banned books are most frequently banned in school libraries. Or not banned, maybe the word we should use is challenged. And you can understand that because often in a public library, people somewhat have the expectation that you're going to find all points of view in it. And not that they don't have that expectation in a school, but in a school, the school acts as the parent often. So when you send your child to school, you have this expectation. And so I think that more frequently, at least in the state of Iowa, it's challenges to materials that are in schools. So there are many, many children's books that have been banned in certain libraries, particularly in the past, or at least challenged. And so our children's staff is going to pick one of those or two and read those. And they're fine, wonderful books where the wild things are. Things like,
Where the Wild Things Are has been banned?
Oh, it's a fascinating story of books that have been banned and challenged.
We'll return to my conversation with Maeve in a moment. But first, let's take a look at Oakland Cemetery's new online database, which is now available to the public.
My name is Russ Buffington. I am the cemetery supervisor here at Oakland Cemetery. The cemetery was deeded to the city in 1843 by the state of Iowa. We do have a couple past Iowa governors here. We have a couple past presidents of the university. Hampshire is here. Of course, we have the Black Angel, which is a big draw at the cemetery. I think Probably the earliest ones are around 1830, 1840. The oldest section of the cemetery would be up in the southwest corner, which would be Church and Governor, at the corner there. When we go to the furthest boundary to the east of Oakland Cemetery would be our newest expansion area. We still have lots of space available here. The last expansion that the cemetery did was in 2000. There is available space for another expansion. The eSIMS is the computer-generated system that's got everything in one computer system that you can click on a map and take you and drill down to exactly who owns the lot, who's interred in the lot, a birth date, death date, the location in the cemetery, and it gives people an opportunity from their own home to look at the cemetery, do genealogy from their own home instead of coming out here. And when people want to find somebody, they can get a pretty good idea before they leave home where to find it. When you go onto the Iowa City website and you drill into Oakland Cemetery, then there's a link that takes you to the eSIMS. There's a map and there's tools to let you maneuver around, and you can pan in and pan out to get a picture. There's a legend that shows what lots are available, what lots are sold. And then there's also a search tool where you can search by last name, and you can drill down that way. And you can search under buried and/or owner. And we've already had some people come in since the system went live and we started advertising it that weren't even aware that Oakland Cemetery was a city-owned cemetery, or that there was even spaces available still here. The eSIM system offers them a way to see that and get a pretty good idea of where they're going to be and where they want to be without leaving their home. So people still need that interaction with us here at the cemetery. People are more than welcome to come in if they're having trouble with the system. There is an email link on there where if they have questions, they can email and we'll get back with you and help you out however we can.
The new online map and database are available at icgov.org/Oakland. Now let's return to my conversation with Maeve Clark for more on the Intellectual Freedom Festival being held at the Iowa City Public Library this September 22nd through the 28th.
Wednesday night we're showing All the President's Men. It's the 40th anniversary of that film. 40 years ago. It's about Watergate and the suppression of information, so that will be a good one. Thursday, on September 26th at noon, we are having banned poems that built America, and it starts with Walt Whitman and ends with Tupac. And this is an interesting collaboration with the Senior Center, and we'll have a group called Poetry Aloud, so we're looking forward to that one. Then Thursday night, we're doing something that we're calling Is This Censorship? And what we're thinking is, during the week of Banned Books Week, we'll have available people to pick up a slip and then to find a book anywhere in the library that they might think, well, I don't like this book, or if I could ban a book, this is a book I would ban, and they could write on that slip of paper and do that. And then we will probably also go through the American Library Association's list of the banned books for the last 10 years, ban those books, and then have the international writing scholars come in and ban their own books, ban them, and then have a discussion that night. So Thursday night we want to talk about what is censorship and why does censorship happen, to get people to think about the freedoms that we have, why they're so important, and discuss, well, if a book were to be banned, what reason would there be for that? And then we're very excited about an event we're doing on Friday night, and we're showing a film, a documentary called Far Out Isn't Far Enough, the Tommy Ungerer story. And Tommy Ungerer is a children's author. We have many, many, many of his books in the children's room. It was very well a celebrated children's author. The documentary is about what happened to him when he continued to do his children's writing and illustration, but he also verged into more graphic adult illustration. And all of his works were then banned and pulled from American libraries. We also are giving away this year a cup, a banned book week cup from the American Library Association. And it's got all sorts of interesting books that have been banned on it. Animal Farm, Naked Lunch, Catcher in the Rye, Lolita, Tropic of Cancer, The Satanic Verses. So each event that we have will have a drawing and someone will win this cup. We also sell, I forgot to say this, every year the American Library Association and the other organizations have buttons or pins for Banned Books Week. And they're always pretty interesting and colorful and provocative, and people, if you get a button, people will say, oh, So another thing that makes people think. So those will be for sale at the help desk, but these will be given away free.
Great.
Yep. And we'll also have a display of banned materials, which will be interesting because people will come in and they'll say, well, why would anybody ban that? And we hope with this censorship where we're allowing people to put bans or spine labels on books, that will be all over the library, because certainly the nonfiction collection has things that people don't agree with, and it has probably materials in there that people don't agree with, as well as the fiction collection and the children's materials. I mean, somebody might just come in and say, I don't like this author, I've never liked him, so I'm going to ban him. And then we can say, well, is that a good reason to ban something? So
it could be a really fun, interactive sort of
that's what we hope.
Exercise.
Yeah.
With the whole community.
We hope to. Mm-hmm. And I think it's particularly with everything that's happened with the National Security Agency and WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, that these are topics that we need to discuss. And
Great.
Our goal is to have a number of people there and have a lively and provocative,
and
we
it's
hope.
Open to the public.
Oh, that's the whole purpose of it. Open to the public.
Thank you so much for talking with me today, Maeve.
Thank you.
Now let's take a closer look at one of the events planned for the Intellectual Freedom Festival, a reading of various pieces of poetry that have been challenged or banned at some point since their creation.
Floating across the tops of cities, contemplating jazz.
We did song lyrics a couple of years ago, and we found that gets the most emotional response from people. A book can get a visceral response, but a poem touches something inside. And so we're going to look at some of the poets and some of the poems that have been banned over the probably last 150 years. And so we've got the Read Aloud group from the center, and they've come in and they're going to be reading, some famous poems and not so famous poems, but all of the authors that have been chosen are banned poets in some way or another throughout history. Poems tend to rile your soul, and very little is known about banned poems. I mean, there's some famous ones, Howl, which we'll be reading by Allen Ginsberg, who from the 1950s. That was really banned, and in fact, one of the major censorship court cases in the last 100 years was over that poem. Robert Frost was banned when he was first writing in 1913, 1915, because he was a natural poet. He wasn't talking about God or literature or romantic prose. He was talking about the earth and nature, and it was dark, and they didn't want to read that. They didn't want to, that reminded them too much of their daily existence. And then of course we have poets like Ogden Nash, who through humor said things that people wanted to say but really didn't get a chance to. And he got a lot through, and very simplistic. That's the other thing about poems. The words that were chosen were often relaying the point that the poet wanted to get across. And that was for the reader to interpret. And once they got it, the poem had its power. The final segment of our poetry reading is children's poets. And Dr. Seuss is in that category now. He's considered a children's poet, a children's author, but also a children's poet. And what he had to say, especially in the latter years of his life, when he knew he only had a short time to say things, was very powerful. Shel Silverstein is another person that we are highlighting today, who was a songwriter for the most part, but he also wrote poetry. And his stuff has been challenged and banned all over the country because it upsets the status quo, or at least is interpreted to upset the status quo. And that's kind of what intellectual freedom is all about. It's something that challenges what we hold strong and sacred, and we believe this is what it is. A poet can get in there and kind of twist it around and say, maybe it's a little different. Maybe my interpretation is a little different.
You can watch all of these segments again by visiting citychannel4.com/video or by turning to Channel 5 and calling in to Video On Demand. Check out some of our past shows while you're there. Also, be sure to like us on Facebook to receive updates about other City Channel 4 programs you may enjoy. Find us there at facebook.com/citychannel4. Thanks for watching this month's episode of Iowa City in Focus. I'll see you next time.
You're watching City Channel 4. On TV, online, on demand, on Facebook, and now on the go on your mobile device.